We have a pretty small group to date, but I guess I should go over this standard RDA slide. This is the guiding principles for RDA. We obviously want to be community driven. We're so community driven. We are a community of practice. So we are as open as possible. We work by consensus, as inclusive as possible, neutral as far as technology and industry concerns. And we're all about harmonization. So if you haven't already joined the RDA, I think everybody here so far, I'm sure, is already a member. Okay, so I'm going to go over the agenda. We'll do some introductions since we're a small group and to maybe allow other people time to join us. Then we'll have an update on the webinar series that we've been in the process of organizing. Alan Moss is going to give us a report from the Agricultural Data Ethics Group. And then we'll have two talks from people who are interested in proposing working groups or collaborations with RDA for working groups. One is on genomic data, and I changed that at the last minute because that's really the focus of David's talk today. And then Felipe will be talking about AI in agriculture as a potential working group. And then the bulk of the rest of the time we'll be talking about the state of adoption of recommendations, either from RDA or just general work in the field. So Christopher Baker will be talking about adoption of agri-semantics resources, which has been a big focus of RDA agricultural working groups over the years. And then Deborah's not able to make it today to talk about pollinator standards, but Felipe is going to present her slides. And then we'll have some discussion at the end of the time. So with that, let's do some brief introductions since we have time and we have a small group. So I'm Cindy Parr. I work for the USDA Agricultural Research Service. I'm one of the co-chairs of RDA, of the RDA IGAD, Improving Global Agricultural Data Community of Practice. And so that's the hat that I'm wearing here is not USDA per se, but IGAD. So I'll pass it to Peter to introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you. Piotr Zabrowski from Open Geospatial Consortium, which is the associations working on the geospatial data standards, which is naturally closely linked to those agriculture topics, and working in some of the areas on the agriculture data. So also chairing the IGAD, co-chairing the IGAD group. That's it. Shall I pass over to somebody like wants to go next?
I can go next. Yeah. So my name's Christopher Baker. I'm a professor at the University of New Brunswick. I have a visiting professorship at the University of Sheffield in the UK. I've worked in semantics and ontology since about 2004, and agri-semantics since about 2016. And I do have an undergraduate degree in agriculture as well. So I feel qualified. But yeah, currently I teach computer science at the University of New Brunswick. I'm also involved with AGE 34, the British Standards Institute, where I'm national chair. I've recently started that position. So yeah, agri-semantic standards is my topic, and I'm interested, and I hope you'll find what I say interesting today. So,
all right, let's go to David.
Hello, I'm David Mollick. I'm the department head for the Open Publishing Exchange at Kansas State University, which is a Scalcom library unit, which focuses on publishing both open educational resources as well as time and open access, as well as research data management, which we see as inherently linked. But I tell the administration that my job is data compliance and publishing compliance on U.S. federal grants. So it's a little bit about us. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to Alan.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Alan Moss. I work with Cindy at the USDA, and I also work with the University of Maryland. I am a postdoctoral associate in the AI Fellows Program, between the two. And for the last couple of years, I've been the co-chair of the Ethics and Ag Data Working Group. And so I'm excited to be sharing about our draft recommendations later on.
Great, thanks you. And finally, Clement. And if you can introduce both of you in your room there.
Of course. So hello, everyone. My name is Clément Jonquet. I'm from INRAE in France, in Montpellier. I'm a computer scientist by training, but working in agriculture for a while now, agriculture and semantics. And even in the agri-semantics working group, when we used to have one at RDA, I was also involved in other working group, the wheat data interoperability one. So I've been following IGAD for a certain time. Yeah, very pleased to also track down a little bit what's going on, and also I haven't been involved in the ethics actions more recently, but looking forward to see also what's happening.
And I am Felipe. Since June of the last year, I joined Clement's group here in Montpellier, and I also have a background in computer science and in library science as well. And in the past years, I've been working with controlled vocabularies, ontologies for both agriculture and biodiversity. And I think that's it on my side.
Fantastic. So everybody's here. Let's move to the next topic on the agenda. Peter, want to tell us about the webinar series planning?
Yep. So few months ago already, or maybe more even, we started this discussion as the follow-up of the webinars that had place in the past, and there was quite interest on having this exchange facilitated sessions with the RDA. So we collected this number of topics that people would like to talk or hear about. And I believe that there will be many overlaps naturally. So in particular, there are this few in italic, which is maybe will be covered partially here. Maybe there will be overlaps in the geo working group, which is part of the OGC. The group is also planning to have the co-chaired meeting, so that will be OGC/RDA IGAD, and a couple of more. It's not like a closed list. What we want to do is simply to organize it through this year, and on the RDA platform. And you will see some of the updates in the news. But if there is any other topic which is not covered in this agenda, and you would like to pitch, or if you would like to propose the extended sessions on this topic, that is always possible. So this is the information and the invitation also to have this done together. There's a number of projects which are really happening and in these areas. So the idea is to capture some of these good practices within the IGAD as well, and share it among the others, and also within the other groups. The IGAD is quite specific. It's pretty domain focused in comparison to many of the other working groups. So we hope that there will be also this cross fertilization between these groups. So that's the current state. What the plan is to just start after this plenary, and to have this monthly, not to overload everybody, and to have this kind of chance to not only to present, but also discuss what are the issues, and dive deeper into these topics. So that's the plan. Stay tuned. I mean, if you're not part of the IGAD group, you can always subscribe. It doesn't take too much time. And if you have any other suggestions, feel free to reach us out also. Thank you.
So just one note, David Malik has already volunteered to do a webinar, to organize a webinar session on behalf of the AgBio Data Group. So we'll hear a little bit about the work that AgBio Data is doing in this session. But as you can tell, our engagement with plenary sessions is not terribly high. What we have found is that doing webinar series or brown bag lunches is a much better way to reach out to our community, because they're able to focus on the topic, and we can use that to help bring them into the RDA process. So thanks for everybody for supporting this, and thanks, Peter, for taking the lead on it. Okay, next we'll move to Alan Moss to talk about the Ethics and Ag Data Working Group.
Okay, thank you. Apologize, I'm coming down with a cold, or recovering from a cold. So the Ethics and Ag Data Working Group, this is a group that has been around, as you can see from the timeline, since the winter of 2023. The purpose of the group was to create, and the final product of the group was to create RDA recognized recommendations, which can hopefully be adopted by those working throughout the agricultural, or working with agricultural data in the agricultural industry. And based on kind of like the membership, additional membership of the working group, one of our kind of like initial kind of sub focuses has really been focusing on the perspective of smallholder farmers who have not always had their like perspectives reflected in these kind of data governance structures before. So the group initially started in winter 2023. That's when we kind of like came up with some of the plans for the group, started discussing kind of like the aim and direction of the group. And that culminated with the case statement being approved in August of 2024. For those of you unfamiliar with like the structure of working groups with the Research Data Alliance, it's kind of like a formal structure where you have to submit a case statement and get that approved. So we had to go through a couple iterations of our case statement before it got finally approved. And it was finally approved, and we became an endorsed working group with RDA in August 2024. So the working groups are also meant to be temporary and not kind of continue on in perpetuity. So the most working groups are meant to work for about 18 months. We're actually past that 18-month mark. We had a little disruption, so we're hoping to actually wrap up our activities over the summer of this year. So we'll reach about like the 2-year mark instead of the 18-month mark for that group. But that's been told that we're okay with that. I'll also mention that we put out a survey, as you can see, in like April 2025, which I'll talk about kind of the results of that as well. But there was also a tiger landscape analysis that was put out in March of 2025. So Tiger RDA they actually had a facilitator for the group. So for those of you interested in working groups, I'm not sure if will actually be an option for your working group, but we were fortunate enough to have a facilitator that was provided to us by RDA through this kind of Tiger Working Group program. And our facilitator was amazing. He was extremely helpful. I learned a lot from him actually about like facilitation, organizing, and things like that. So that was a huge help. So thank you to RDA and Tiger for that. Our survey analysis was done in May of 2025. And then our draft recommendations were first drafted in last winter, so winter 2025. Next slide, please. Here are some of our results I mentioned that we put out about a year ago. Some of the results of that. We found that by far the most significant ethical challenge that survey respondents mentioned was appropriate benefits of data sharing. This was well and above like any other concern. And this suggests that like individuals are not currently receiving appropriate benefits of data. The second highest was actually tied between two different challenges or concerns. The first was power asymmetries between data producers and users, which kind of leads into that first one, honestly. And then the other one, which also kind of leads into it, is informed consent. And we actually broke down the survey by gender, and we actually found that like those two second ones, men tend to be maybe perhaps a little bit more concerned about like the power asymmetries, and women slightly more about like the informed consent and things. So there was actually some like slight breakdown between that if you want to I can share the results. We take like a more thorough look at our kind of like breakdown of the survey. And the survey originally is supposed to, or is going to inform our final recommendations. So next slide, please. So here's the timeline of our recommendations that we have right now. I'm sharing it with you all because you can all help participate, hopefully, in reviewing and giving us feedback on these recommendations. So here is our timeline that we're hoping to stick to for the recommendations. So as you can see right now, recommendations are in the initial draft form. So comments close April 7th. So if you could take a look, I'm going to have a link to the recommendations. If you could help share this, we've already tried to share this broadly, but we know we haven't reached everybody. So feel free to look at them and leave comments on this draft by April 7th. We'll have a couple weeks to review those recommendations, and then we'll re-release the second draft May 12th, or rather, we'll re-release it the 21st, and then May 12th is when we'll be hoping to get the feedback on the second round. Then we'll have the final version, pre-final version kind of sent out for review for any last minute things that are urgently needed. We'll submit that to the RDA Technical Advisory Board and get their feedback. And then we're hoping to release the final recommendations July 7th. Next slide, please. So here are some important links for everybody. You can reach out to me if you have any specific concerns or questions. I put my email address there, and these are hyperlinks that will work once you're download the slides. I have to post that to chat. We also have the working group homepage on the RDA website. We also have the draft recommendations link. I'll drop that into the chat as well. And then we're giving a plenary talk with the AI and data visitation working group tomorrow. I think it's about the same time as this meeting, actually. And there's a link to that as well. So if you want to learn a little bit more specifics about that, we'll be going into like a lot of different details about different things for that meeting as well. And that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions after, I guess, or whenever the assigned time for questions is.
I'm looking and I don't see anybody with questions. You can always put questions in the chat, and we have a packed agenda. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to David to get started on his topic. And you have about, I'd say you have about 10 minutes. I know you have a lot of material to cover, so I'll try to make sure that we can stay on time for the rest of the session.
Sure. Absolutely. I will. And then when I need a new slide, I'll just say next slide. As I said, I'm David Mollick. I'm the Department of Open Publishing Exchange, but I'm also a co-PI on a Research Coordination Network grant with the NSF, and I'm currently in a no-cost extension for another year, and then we'll be resubmitting for several grants as well. I'm also on the steering committee of an organization called the AgBio Data. Also put my email in there. And if I could have the next slide. So the AgBio Data RCN is a organization that's primarily concerned with genomics, genetics, and breeding databases. For those that don't know, these are agricultural databases that provide a resource to the community in that they're providing data to both stakeholders as in farmers, but stakeholders as in researchers as well. AgBio Data, if you next slide, has sorry, the statistics are buried in the speaker notes, but has over 300 members at the moment, 78 active working group members, split across various academic positions, including professors, postdocs, librarians, and are currently covering the United States, Germany, France, Canada, UK, Spain, so on. Next slide. We have 45 active database resources, three publishers, including Genetic Society of America, Micropublications Biology, and then my own shop, New Prairie Press, which is a library press with K-State. 381 total members. There you go. We have this year, and this is 2025 results that you're looking at on this page. We have in 2025, we had 8 webinars, 2 conference workshops, 1 virtual community workshop, 1 new working group, natural language processing for biocuration, 2 white papers, a conference workshop, 3 champions. That's an award that we give out with a monetary value, as well as ambassadors, another award with a monetary value. We also have implemented a curriculum program which offers $600 on top of other curriculum efforts that would be used in training efforts towards GGB use. We have 7 active working groups. Next page. 7 active working groups at the moment. I'm going to get into 3 of them real quick later on. Last year, we also published a series of papers, journal articles, including guidelines for gene and genome assembly nomenclature, a piece on the need for robust, fair phenomic database supporting agricultural efficiency and resiliency. As you can tell, we're having a sustainability bent as of late, including our annual meeting coming up in April, in-person annual meeting in Kansas City, which will be mostly focused on both database and network sustainability. Next slide. But overall, as we think about this project, AgBioData in the Research Coordination Network, we have 4 aims: continuing developing recommendation standards and implementation practices for fair data management issues, as related to, and then you can put as related to GGB databases on all of these. Disseminate and maintain fair educational materials for resources, continue network building and disseminate working group deliverables, and develop groundwork for sustainable GGB databases, where a lot of our current effort is focused right now. Next slide. So we currently have 7 active working groups, 11 total in the past, or 11 non-active as we finish out projects. The new AI and the ones in bold here, I will do a quick, very quick high-level introduction to these working groups. The point here being that these might be touch points for collaboration with the Research Data Alliance and the IGAD. But currently we have a new AI readiness, which is about getting database resources ready for AI interaction, fair scientific literature, natural language processing for biocuration, which I mentioned, phenotypic data standardization management, single cell RNA-seq and biocuration, a new thing for GGBs, standards for genetic variation data, and sustainability. And I'll go through the bold ones. So next slide. First, my personal favorite, but only because I work with this working group quite a bit, but the Fire Scientific Literature Working Group tries to identify bottlenecks in the publication to curation pipeline, identify sets of existing or desired tools for biocuration resources, and increase literature creation throughout throughput and accuracy, and then publish recommendations and a roadmap for authors and publishers to increase the fairness of published research. Next slide. As you can click through as I'm talking here on this slide because it's so one of the major outputs of this group was the question of if you are a biocurator or a generalist curator at a university or an organization, you may have data that is related to agricultural genomics, genetics, and breeding databases, but you might not know where that data go. And to that end, this working group created a tool, which is a Drupal applet based on some work that Cornell had done for internal data resources on campus, but modified for the use of data. So if you have, say, an organism that you're interested in this case, Arabidopsis, you can see the relevant GBB resources that are connected to the AgBio data network that are in Arabidopsis. Next slide, or next, if you just click through this slide to get it all. Then you can submit based on the type of data, and finally, you can try. Lastly, that we've added features so that you can find data. So if you're looking for various genetic mapping or genomics data across databases, you can by selecting find that data, you can determine which resources would have that data that you might be able to utilize in your own research. Next slide. So as the database finder tool, you can find it on the AgBioData website, which I've posted in the chat. One of the, now they're looking at how can we further use this tool and other things to again increase throughput in the publishing to curation pipeline, make things easier as well. AI has been a interest. Get into philosophy at some other date if you want to talk to me. Next slide. So next, the standards for genetic variation data working group and some of the stuff they've been working on recently. Next slide. So they recently, this is going to be a very quick 1,000-foot view of some of these working groups. Sorry, it's just a timing thing. They recently published a teaching and training framework to promote findable or fair data generation in agriculture, already published within Zenodo, just some of the work they're working on. Next slide. Next, the sustainability working group. Next slide. So this is about continuing impact analysis. So they're looking at funding in the NSF RCN extension, but also looking at funding at the database level, including, how do you cite data within a GBB in a way that, has a permanent document identifier for bits and bobs of data. So not just, okay, we're going to cite the whole database, but we want to cite specific things within these databases. And if you want to click through. There's more on this slide. Yeah. So looking at citations and so far. Next slide. You can sort of see some of that. Current activities. They're also looking at, I'm not sure why that isn't appearing, but they're looking at writing sort of a white paper based on why these databases are so important overall, and then looking at one-page summaries for the importance of these executive summaries for the importance of these databases towards legislators, scientist stakeholders, industry, and then maybe wrapping all of that in a journal opinion piece. So mostly what sustainability is doing at this point is a lot of writing. Next slide. Yeah. So as I said, they're looking at that white paper. I think they want to get out that by December and looking at securing America's the legislative executive summary as soon as possible to get that into the for this current legislative season. Next slide. Yeah, and then lastly, the new AI readiness working group, which is working towards making service-friendly ways for AI to access GBB data, but also accelerating the curation and promotion of best practices in landscape. So that's sort of, as I said, a very quick high-level summary of some of the working groups within AgBioData and hopefully some salient touch points for those involved in IGAD. So thank you.
Great. So with that last one, it's a really good segue to our next talk, which is also about AI. And so I will hand this over to Felipe, and then we can have some brief discussion if there's time. So Felipe?
Yes, thanks, Cindy. And I think there is a big overlap between what I'm going to present now and with the things that David just showed us. And I've been discussing this here with Clement, And we came to this conclusion that if we are to start a new working group or task group in the context of IGAD related to AI, would make sense to be something related to getting data sets AI ready, because this is also something that we are working here in the context of an European project called SEEDS, the Common European Agricultural Data Space. And the idea is to apply all this data models, semantics, to go through the process of data harmonization to get high quality data sets for training machine learning and different AI models. So I think, yes, there is an overlap with what David just showed us. So maybe we could join forces. Can you please go to the next slide? But there is an important aspect that here we are also concerned in the context of this project, which is governance of the data. So one thing is to get these data sets ready, right? So applying the standards, going through these processes that we know quite well in the community. But still now governance is a problem. So how do you manage who's having access to the data sets? What are the rules for accessing these data sets? How do you manage like monetization? In our project, we have many data sets that are not like open and free. And then there are some standards that are being used and recommended by the International Data Spaces Protocol for managing the governance, but still there are lots of discussions going on because the recommended standards, they do not cover the whole all the pipeline for this processing of these data sets and traceability. So maybe could be also one of the goals of this group to discuss the limitations of the current standards, propose extensions, or find other extensions that are not being considered under the this International Data Spaces Protocol that could be useful, especially for agriculture. Next slide, please. So the idea would be really connecting with the data spaces. We have, as I just said, this new data space for Europe called SEEDS, and we know that the data spaces are also emerging in different countries around the world. So the idea would be connecting with these different agricultural data spaces and see how we can work together to solve these common issues related to standardization, data harmonization, but also governance, and understanding how we can work together to make recommendations and improve the existing standards as well. So we have in SEEDS, we are exploring a few data standards. So for metadata, we are using GeoDCAT, and another application profile for DCAT called High Value Data Sets Application Profile. So this is another concept that is there in the topic number 4. So the concept of high value data sets is being worked here in Europe in the context of a regulation. I don't remember right now the number of this regulation, but it's quite near, from 2023. And the high value data sets, they go, well, they have deeply related to the fair data principles, but since they are backed by a regulation, there are some specific technical requirements for making a data set a high value data set. And these requirements, they are most about, you have to provide an API for accessing this data. And then there are some requirements for this API. Also, you must provide like a bulk download option. This data set must have like an open license. So there are a few requirements that are very similar to the fair data principles, but while the fair data principles, they make recommendations, this is a regulation. So there are explicit things that people must do in order to be able to tag their data sets as high value data sets. And well, and then we have also here in Europe a list of categories of data sets that can fit. So it's not like all data sets. And we have also a few categories for agriculture. And now we are also discussing, because this list is quite constrained, and we are having these discussions, is this list enough for the priority data sets in agriculture. So this could be also a topic to be discussed under this working group. What are the high value data sets for agriculture? Because if we rely solely on the list of categories that are there in the regulation, it's quite restricted. But for now, we are working with this because the European Commission asked us in the context of seeds to work specifically with the regulation. And then we could also do this in other contexts, because we have seen that the concept of high value data sets, it's quite common. And we have seen different definitions coming from other countries as well, from other contexts. So then we could also join forces to see how this concept is evolving in different parts of the world. And then the role of this group would be making some recommendations that could be applied in these different contexts as well. Next slide, please, Cindy. And yeah, and in the expected outputs, we would have these guidelines for AI-ready agricultural data sets. We could think on a few use cases for that, and then we could join forces to write these guidelines. Also for responsible AI in agriculture, considering also these governance aspects that I just mentioned. So working not only with the domain-specific standards, but also with the open digital rights language, or DRL, verifiable credentials, and other standards for managing governance and access control. We could have a list of platforms for secure, sovereign, and data sharing for AI training. So as I mentioned, we have seeds here in Europe, but it would be interesting to connect with the different platforms offering similar services around the world. And of course, this is our main role here at IGAD to support the reuse of semantic artifacts through Agro Portal. So this is a platform that we maintain here, and it offers hundreds of vocabularies of ontologies and other controlled vocabularies in agriculture. So the idea would be to use this as a platform to provide different services to these different platforms that are being used for deploying these data sets and training AI as well. So the ideas are very abstract, but I hope we can get a more concrete idea out of this discussion today. And I think that's it from my side.
Thank you. So I'm already getting some good thoughts about how we can leverage the work that the AgBio data group is starting to do on AI-ready data, and maybe join up with an RDA working group to maybe expand the focus so that we can learn from what's happening right now with genomic data sets, breeding data sets, but think more broadly about how to apply it, and then maybe even geographically broaden the focus. I know AgBio data does seem to have a lot of participation across the activity is focused effort to promote what's happening in the world that David is talking about, but also maybe take it further in the directions that Felipe is talking about. So David, do you have any comments?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that would be a great idea. I think I can get in touch with the AI readiness group and IGAD, and maybe we can set up some sort of collaborative meeting from there. Perhaps maybe just a couple of key individuals at first, but then really hash out what that could look like for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to reinvent any work that's already been done. So the focus of the new working group should be to either fill in the gaps or extend in ways that are not appropriate for AgBio data to do. So it's great. What I find in these cases is that it requires having a champion who's willing to call people together and actually prepare and submit the case statement that Alan was mentioning for the process of getting a working group together. So sounds like Felipe, you're already well along the way into thinking about what should go into that case statement, and we should just get you together with the Ag Biodata AI Ready working group to make sure that we're making progress and not reinventing the wheel. And any other comments from anybody else before we move on?
No, well, I can just support it. That's kind of good idea. I've seen on the project website that there's already a couple of our members who are active recently in this OGC agriculture working group that could be relevant, and probably they have
good.
some of these artifacts that maybe you're using or maybe you're not. Do you already met any issues like scaling this approach overseas? One of the issues that we had in the past regarding the catalogs metadata was really that maybe this GeoDCAD is not that, especially GeoDCAD AP, which is coming from Europe, is maybe not that well adopted, around the globe. But maybe there are some of the other issues, and yeah, I think that's good to align on those. Yeah, we should probably start on exploring what is already in the RDA groups and in all of these sub communities.
Yeah, so I can, on behalf of the IGAD co-chairs, we're happy to support whatever logistics you need to bring the right people together to define a manageable scope. As Alan mentioned, there needs to be something that can be completed within 18 months, and we're not going to solve every problem everywhere. A lot of the things Felipe is mentioning are things that we've worked on over the years, and maybe having AI now as a working goal, AI readiness, that will help us actually crystallize and come up with something concrete on some of these things that are actionable. Christopher, did you have a comment? Can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you are.
Yes, very good. My question is briefly around AI ready data, precisely what the definition is. I've spent a little bit of time working in the area of digital twins, for which process-based models are often used, sometimes in hybrids with data-driven models. And they have very bespoke requirements, each specific model. So that's, in the broad umbrella of AI, are we thinking just of data-driven modeling?
Yeah,
AI data, is it just for data-driven modeling?
Yeah, and I think if you'll go back to some previous recordings of other sessions, we had a session on this, and definitely agreed that AI readiness is not one thing. There's many different ways to be AI ready, and so it is not a simple thing, and that'll be the task, I think, of this working group, is to break it down and define it and scope it so that there is something achievable, whether it's per data type, database type, or as Peter was mentioning, geospatially, or geographically, if there's some. Anyway, we don't have time to talk about it here, but I think that's a good point, Christopher. We'll need to make sure that this group is clear enough in what it's tackling so that it's achievable and not claiming to solve AI readiness for everything for everybody. It's too hard a topic. All right, so with that, I think this is actually a nice segue to how to make sure that what you're doing is actually adoptable. And so we will hear from Christopher Baker on agri-semantics and adoptability.
Next slide, please. Yeah, I'm very pleased to be here with RDA. So the title here is of a paper that is in press currently with the Journal of Agriculture and Food Information. It's currently with the desk editors. Yeah, it's a study that's been ongoing for a number of years. So we started this in COVID. when we had too much time on our hands, and we picked up the phone and got on Teams and spoke to a number of experts in the domain, and this is where it kicked off. I should just talk about the affiliation. So my affiliation here is at University of New Brunswick and with the University of Sheffield, and Brett Drury and Karina are at Liverpool Hope University. So next slide, please. So the goal here, this slide is just to sort of put us on the same page as what we're referring to in agri-semantics. So we think of this as a sustainable technology agnostic approach for data integration challenges, a source of universal definitions of agricultural concepts through semantic resources. And Clément has already pointed to his compendium or his resource for hundreds of ontologies. But obviously Agrivoc and crop ontology are well known. But agri-semantics clearly is an enabler of interoperability for different systems, data sets, and for stakeholders. People talk about interoperability in different ways. But in essence, we are supporting consistent communication and exchange of information. Next slide, please. So the next slide is uses of agri-semantics. So again, this is just to point to a number of ways in which ontologies and agri-semantics in particular get used. To clear it, there are ways for the uses of ontologies for authoring linked data. People do formal reasoning over formal ontologies. People use ontologies and agri-semantics for annotation of APIs and schemas for the discoverability. And there's an awful lot of semantic querying that's enabled because of those terminologies as well. Decision support systems, again, like digital twins, are also leveraging semantics. In more applied settings, we have traceability audits in food systems, which leverage agri-semantics. So next slide, please. So the goals of the study really was to independently assess a critical knowledge gap, right? Clearly the adoption issue, by presenting a qualitative study of academics and practitioners. So, as I said, to identify barriers that prevent agri-semantics from emerging as a robust technology for data integration, and to identify drivers that may encourage wider adoption. Next slide, please. So the key contributions of the study, really, that it's an independent qualitative mixed methods approach that covers the time frame of 2020 to 2025 when we wrapped up the paper. We went about conducting interviews. We got 25 interviews with experts of about 60 minutes each or more, and we had an online questionnaire. We had 76 responses. The participants were primarily from academia, industry, and public agencies, but they were globally sourced and leveraging a snowball sampling approach, where it's a type of friend of a friend approach. Experts referring other experts to find the best people to talk to. And we conducted a thematic analysis to ensure that the work was empirically grounded and robust. And the outcomes, are essentially practical recommendations for funders, policymakers, and tool developers. Next slide, please. So the average participant really was a male, either from academia or private not-for-profit agency. Could I get the next slide, please? And so they were located primarily in Europe or North America. That's just the nature of those people who we could reach. The gender representation was 25% female and 75% male. Like I said, academics or private, those working in private or not-for-profit agencies. And the geographical distribution was clearly had a Western skew, with Europe and North America being the major participants. Next slide, please. So From a methodological perspective, what we came up with was a series of themes. This is a sort of a granular coding scheme that emerged from reviewing all of the interview transcripts, and we were able to identify 13 granular coding schemes for which each of our granular codes had a definition, inclusion criteria, and exclusion criteria. And you can see those in the table if you look closely. So that's what we used to come up with these. So decision maker resistance, client cost concerns, developer skill gaps, tool limitations and weaknesses, ad hoc integration, and government and policy support. Next slide, please. The next one. Yeah, here we are. And so the remaining ones were internal gatekeeping individuals, data heterogeneity, loss of momentum, individual champions, hybrid architectures, domain-specific drivers, and academic industry divide was also a theme. So next slide, please. So of these 13 categories, we actually decided that this was quite a lot, and we wanted to merge themes into specific groups. So I'm going to talk about the merged themes here. So we basically merged four categories here under organizational and cultural barriers. So decision maker resistance, internal gatekeeping, loss of momentum, and academic industry divide are all there under this category. If we go to the next one, please. Yeah, so we have economic and resource constraints, which are comprised of client cost concerns and developer skill gaps. Next slide, please. And then technical and infrastructure challenges. This merged theme comprised of tool limitations, ad hoc integration, data heterogeneity, and hybrid architecture. Next slide, please. Right, and then drivers adoption. The individual champions and just domain-specific drivers were also topics and their themes that emerged from all of the transcripts that we looked at. So next slide, please. So this is the heat map of the 28 interviews and the 13 categories that we had originally started with, and we've enumerated the number of mentions of any given theme in any given interview. So that's what the results looked like. So what did they actually mean? So if we go next slide, please. So the key findings, and this is a ranked list. So these are the ranked list of items that are constraining or limiting adoption. So the primary issue was organizational and cultural factors. So notably, decision maker resistance was top of that list, followed by internal gatekeeping. Misalignment between academic and commercial communities is a challenge that limits adoption, as does awareness, momentum, trust, and commitment. These are all barriers that prevent us from really adopting. So there are technological and infrastructure obstacles as well. And these are centered on the limitations of tools, specifically usability, the data heterogeneity, and uncertainty about appropriate technology stacks was also a concern that emerged, and their specific scalability that caused hesitance for adoption. And economic and resource constraints bottomed out the list. Some people were concerned about financial pressures and the shortage of skilled personnel. And these further restrict uptake. So next slide, please. So this slide talks about the drivers. So again, a ranked list. So domain-specific drivers were the most frequently reported motivator for adoption of agri-semantics. So operational domain-specific drivers, specifically provenance tracking and food safety, was the number one. Traceability auditing, digitization, and digital transformations were other drivers for adopting agri-semantics. And then government and policy domain-specific drivers also were mentioned. Targeted regulatory pressure and sporadic individual champions are also important drivers of agri-semantic adoption. Next slide, please. So also in the key findings, we did have contributions from less developed countries. And you will see, I guess, Africa was 3%, Asia 3% odd, South America 7% of our respondents. Yeah, so they were saying that there was weak data infrastructure in their countries, and they had additional overheads to properly adopting agri-semantics. There were data sovereignty concerns, and there's a higher relative cost of data management and the data lifecycle in these countries that prevented them also from adopting. So next slide, please. So here's just to sort of bring it home to, what people actually said. Just these are some representative quotes. Decision maker resistance, people were saying there's little customer demand for semantic solutions. Demand for agri-semantics is simply not there. The internal gatekeeping, basically people saying, well, project managers were blocking the use of semantics. Business units and departments are siloed. There's politics that needs to be played. So there's internal gatekeeping causing problems for adoption. Next slide, please. So this is a second page of quotes. And this is some on the academic industry divide. Academics must meet industry on their terms. So that's an academic, an industry guy saying that. And there's a lack of trust between the companies and universities developing, semantic solutions which are fit for purpose for either very niche or use cases which don't have a strong business driver. And also loss of momentum here. Adoption must be bottom up. Don't pick winners. So people are waiting for adoption before they will continue to support it. That's what the funders might do. And a project stop clearly when funding ends. So that's a huge problem as well. We need longer term funding. So if we could go next slide, please. So what does successful agri-semantics implementation require? So it basically needs grounding in bottom-up operational needs that really fits a purpose. There needs to be alignment across technical, organization, and economic and policy dimensions altogether. There needs to be a complementarity with regulatory or financial incentives to overcome systemic structural constraints in organizations, and we need committed advocates. So next slide, please. So this is the table of summary recommendations. So here, I guess it's a bit more difficult to look at, but in essence, there are funding and policy areas, where we need to make agri-semantics part of the condition of actual funding, so that, in the way that people think about fair data, publishing data as fair data on once they've actually received the funding, or as a requirement of receiving the funding, that's something that should be done. Likewise here. Obviously it's to sustain infrastructure. The tooling aspect, we need to prioritize the usability of the authoring and using of agri-semantics. They need to be easy to be integrated into existing technology stacks, and we want to lower the barrier of entry for use of the technology. In terms of government and coordination, we need to strengthen the governance of agri-semantic resources. And Clement, you may be already doing that type of things, but obviously we want to reduce fragmentation, build trust, and ensure the stability and maintenance over the longer term. From an industry perspective, the focus needs to be on high risk, high value domains such as food safety and traceability. If they're going to engage, then they have to these resources that are developed clearly have to be fit for a business case. the idea is that these should also be linked to compliance, reputational risk, and operational efficiencies. Those will be drivers for businesses and in this industry. And ultimately, we need skills in education. There's opportunities to support semantics in education in universities with additional funding. Semantics doesn't really appear in the computer science undergraduate curriculum at all. Sorry, and only occasionally at the graduate level. So people really have to learn on the job type of thing. Unless they go outside of a regular educational program at a university. So there are skills shortages. So next slide, please. So just a sort of a high level, recommendations for funders, policymakers, and developers and educators. We need an alignment of incentives. We need stronger governance of resources. We need improved tooling and training for the new generation. And next slide, I believe, is just the questionnaire. So I haven't dug into the questionnaire in detail in this presentation. There is a lot more in the paper. Much of the trends that are from the questionnaire do mirror what has been said in the interviews, but that's for another time. And the last slide is, questions. So I hope that wasn't too long.
Thank you. And I guess I'm seeing a few themes coming up that we've heard elsewhere in this meeting. So, the notion of trust and ground up buy-in and training for skills. Some of this is probably overlapping a bit with what Alan was talking about with ethics in agriculture. If we're truly going to have an even playing field and clear who's in charge of these resources, that's one theme. I guess the other question that I'll raise maybe for the group is, what can IGAD and its memberships do to improve adoption? And I had originally wanted to organize this topic because the purpose of RDA is to study and put out recommendations and make sure that they get adopted. Interestingly, you didn't focus on the RDA agri-semantics recommendations. You're focusing more generally on the uptake of the agri-semantics resources. So especially as we're thinking about creating new working groups that will create yet more recommendations, how should we be thinking about all of this as we start that work? Because there's nothing more defeating than realizing you put a lot of effort into something and then after the recommendations come out, nothing actually happens. So I'm opening up the floor. I see lots of thumbs up there. I'm opening up the floor, especially since we're getting ready to embark on this new round of working group activity. What can we do to make sure that what we're recommending actually can get taken up? And I would actually argue, and Chris and I had this conversation yesterday, that AI readiness and the use of these semantic resources in the latest AI tech stacks may actually be a motivation to get the agri-semantics resources that we've already invested a lot of time in, to get them actually more into adoption. But the question is, how do we do that? How do we make sure that the people who need to know about this have the skills or the money to actually integrate into their exciting new projects having to do with AI? So any thoughts from anybody else? This is sort of where I am, and we'll have a little bit of question here, but then I do want to leave time for Felipe to talk a bit about the pollination recommendations, because it's probably a similar story there. Go ahead, is that Clement or Felipe?
Just a quick remark on the indeed, Chris. I mean, agri-semantics has been a term and an expression that has been used in different contexts, and the first time it was branded was indeed in the context of RDA and the agri-semantics working group. So it's hard to reuse the term here without making an explicit recommendation to the RDA working group, and the 39 recommendation that were published by this working group. So we need to know if that paper is kind of making reference to them and also evaluating their impact. And for that, it would have been super useful. But the definition you give of agri-semantics at the very beginning of the talk was very, very wide, very, very fuzzy. And so I'm interested in knowing if this is like evaluating yes or not an RDA output here. So that's the first remark. Remark question. Maybe I just give the second one, and then you react also on that. But indeed, as Cynthia said, I mean, if we start another group or other groups and we produce recommendation, and then after that we evaluate the impact of things that are close but not related to or enough related to, that's a question. My second technical question is, Chris, I mean, you show us the form that is from June 2020. I mean, is that a survey that was done 5 or 6 years ago now, and then that you're publishing now? Or, I mean, is the timing of the result here still appropriate? Or tell us a little bit more about that timing, please. And the last but not the least is, recently, over the last 2 years, the word agri-semantics has been taken over from another group now that I'm sure some of you have heard, which is an the ISO TC Technical Committee 347 that was started about 2 years ago, and that have sort of reused the agri-semantics term inside their agenda, with the goal of producing a lot, at least certain semantics resource for different aspects of agriculture. So are you also relating your study to this, or was that done completely before and that doesn't have any relation with this group now?
Okay, so those are great questions. I can take them, one by one. So actually, I remember the paper of the 39 criteria from RDA coming out, and we did actually kick off our study before that, and we did socialize the study, and I believe that was also a motivator for the swiftness of that paper to be published. So yeah, we started this prior to that paper, and we cite the paper from, is it Sophie Aubin, the 2019 paper, as our reference to what agri-semantics is. I tried to, in this presentation, just to give you some examples of what ontologies and agri-semantics use cases actually happen to be, as a sort of a grounding. And those, we did prompt our interviewees with, what is agri-semantics, and in terms of the duration of the study, it started during COVID. I believe the last interview was in 2023, and we've been working on this since then, in manuscript and different formats. But we've done a very robust analysis of the outcomes of that, and you'll see that in the paper when you read it. And yeah, so on TC 347, I did actually attend the ISO conference last week, and I did listen to Stuart Ree talking about agri-semantics working group that is emerging. I think they have a focus on crop ontologies. They're very focused on establishing metadata standards for collection of agricultural data. They care a lot about versioning and hosting. The focus on agricultural terminologies is a lot about is data driven, right? As opposed to a top-down approach where you sit down with a scientist and say, well, what are all the terms? So theirs is very much a data-driven approach, and they're interested in agri-food standards, so food system standards as well. It sounds to me like you're concerned about the term agri-semantics being used inappropriately in different ways. I mean, agriculture is very broad, semantics is very broad, agri-semantics is even more challenging to interpret again, and there are so many use cases. So it's what we did was an empirical approach, and finding out what people who are practitioners in the field actually think. We didn't enforce anything on them. We said, well, what is your understanding of agri-semantics and its utility in the environments in which you operate and have to integrate agricultural data? So I don't know, would you like to come back on that? Or?
Actually, I think we need to push on because we do have one final set of words related to adoption of pollination standards. And I do hope that we have at least 5 or 10 minutes at the end to just have a general discussion about adoption. And, it sounds like we could certainly use a webinar devoted specifically to this topic so we can get all the players together to have a deeper discussion on this topic in the future. But thanks, Chris, for that presentation. And let me now turn to Felipe for the discussion of the pollinator recommendations that came out of not an RDA output directly, but it was an effort that did come about because of the RDA and the collaboration with the World Fair project. So Felipe, would you go ahead?
Yes, thanks, Cindy. Can you bring full screen? No, I think, yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, well, as Cindy mentioned, I'm speaking on behalf of Deborah. She was the leader of this project. So we were working together in the Agricultural Biodiversity Working Group in the World Fair project, which was an European funded project that lasted for 2 years, well, a bit more, from June 2022 until May 2024. And so in different domains, there were different groups working to do the verification of data. And in our context, we decided to work with data related to plant pollinator interactions. And this was an important partnership between the Committee on Scientific Data, CODATA, from the International Science Council, and the Research Data Alliance. So it was a joint partnership. Cindy, can you please go to the next slide? And this work, well, was a combination of efforts. So it started actually with this other project that was a partnership between the UK and 5 countries in South America called Safeguarding Pollination Services in a Changing World, Theory into Practice, the SURPASS-2. And this project was aimed at providing some standards for plant pollinator interactions dataset, but also for building a national database for plant pollinator interactions in Brazil, which is this one. We see this logo there by the right side of Embrapa called REBIP. This is the national network on plant pollinator interactions. So it deployed not that long ago, I think a couple of years ago, a huge database that connects different institutions in Brazil that publish data sets in plant pollinator interactions. And through this work, we came out with some recommendations with a data standard for plant pollinator interactions that was published in 2022. And this was done under the umbrella of the TEDWIG Biological Interactions Data Interest Group. So this standard basically extends the Darwin Core standard, but specifically for describing these interactions between the animal and the plant and different aspects related to the parts that are important for an interaction. And also there is this class for describing the interaction with all its attributes. So yeah, it's an extension to the Darwin Core standard. And it also, in the context of the World Fair project, we were working both with Darwin Core, with this new vocabulary, which we call the plant pollinator interactions vocabulary, but also with the ecological metadata language. For those familiar with Darwin Core, you know that the way for sharing data in Darwin Core is through the Darwin Core archives, which combine both Darwin Core and the ecological metadata language. So we, in this work, we were discussing how to combine all these recommendations into something that the plant-pollinator interactions community could really use to describe their data sets. And then next slide, please. And these are the 3 main deliverables from the World Fair. So we worked on this 3 reports, and especially the last 2, the recommendations in the report 2 and report 3, that we basically give all the guidelines for the community to apply these standards, how to deploy their data sets in a fair way. And in the last one, we created some fair rubrics specifically for plant-pollinator data sets. And also we provide ways for the community to assess the fairness level of their data sets. And here we can see the number of views and downloads of these reports on Zenodo. Next slide, please, Cindy. And here are some publications that describe part of the outcomes of this project. So we have this first publication that basically described the process of incorporating these measures of data quality with a focus on the fair data principles into plant-pollinator databases. We also have this other one, which is more recent, came out this year, not that long ago, for it's describing the process of applying all these recommendations for one of our partners there in South America, in Argentina. And then we have also 2 presentations that were done in the TEDWIC, which is this big conference for biodiversity data. So we delivered a presentation last year in 2025 related to machine actionability of metadata. So we were describing what are the benefits of having your data sets described with proper metadata. And we were basically demonstrating 2 AI bots that were developed in the context of the World Fair project, that because of these harmonized data sets and metadata, these AI bots, they can read these data sets and create from the scratch some data review papers that for the community are quite handy when they are doing the review of these interactions. And also this older one from 2024 that we're basically discussing the lessons learned from applying the fair data principles to these data sets in the context of the project. And Deborah is also working on a paper describing the application of these recommendations in the different use cases, around eight use cases, if I'm not mistaken, in the World Fair project. And this should come up next in this year. Next slide, please, Cindy. So this is one of the outputs. This is a cookbook. So it's like with the guidelines on how to apply these recommendations from the World Fair project, and with a strong focus on interoperability. So there we see the verification process. It targets 3 data sets at the moment. So we have Global Biotic Interactions platform. It's a global platform that indexes not only plant-pollinator interactions, but all sorts of biotic interactions. And then following this cookbook, you can apply these standards, harmonize your data sets, and then they will be compatible with the harvesting tool from Globi, and also the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, JBIF. The last conversation I followed, they were extending the JBIF data model to incorporate biotic interactions, and they were following the recommendations that we worked on during the World Fair project. So ideally, they should be able to expose the data following the same data model that we used in the World Fair project. And the other one is specific to Brazil. So other institutions in Brazil that want to join the network, they can follow the cookbook to apply all these recommendations, and then they will be able to export their data sets to the Rabbit database. Sorry. Next slide, please, Cindy. And what comes next? Now we are discussing with the pollinator monitoring data space, which is part of the Green Deal data space called SAGE. And the idea is to also apply some of the recommendations from the World Fair project to the data sets they have that they are bringing to their data space. So still, we don't have, concretely speaking, we don't have anything at the moment, but we have had a few meetings with them. They are still listing all the data sets that they want to bring to the pollinator monitoring data space. But once they have this list, we will start working on to do the verification process of these data sets as well. And I think that's it from my side. Thanks a lot.
Yep.
If you have questions.
Thanks. I'll just offer my own personal experience with adoption of this recommendation. We are still in USDA working to adopt some of these recommendations. And I would say that the barriers that we have are really twofold. One is that we just don't have a lot of the experts that we would need within USDA to make this work. And so we've had to rely on people who are experts perhaps in pollination, but who are not experts in data standards and data integration. And so I've actually been the one who has done my best to help bridge that gap, but it's just a small, tiny piece of my job. And it's really hard because of that skills gap. The other thing is that in USDA, we're essentially adding on to a very large existing system called the plants database. And it is not an easy task to redo the technical architecture to add new kinds of data to it in a way that's consistent with these recommendations. And it's not these recommendations' fault. It's just, I think this is a general problem. And I think it came up in Chris's interviews too, that, sometimes it's just, there's a large infrastructure cost that you sometimes have to pay if you're trying to add something new to it or something even major to it, like a semantics resource. So I think this is not a new problem. And I guess one thing to keep in mind is all of this pollinator work is relatively recent and it's still early days. And it sounds like you're getting good uptake actually in the academic world and in verifying data sets that can be used by others. So sounds like there's some hopeful outcomes already, but certainly something we should keep in mind for the future. So we only have 5 minutes left in this session, and I put up a few general questions for us to talk about based on what we've heard today. And one is, what are the barriers that you've seen in your organizations to adopting recommendations like these? What can we collectively do to promote adoption, and how can IGAD help you? And obviously this is a much bigger conversation than we have time for today, but I'll just open the floor to any thoughts from any of you.
Yeah, well, Cindy, considering what you just mentioned, I think projects like the World Fair, submitting proposals to calls like that with a focus on working with standards, it's a good thing, because what we noticed during the World Fair project was that many institutions, they were interested in applying the recommendations, but as you said, they didn't have people there to work on those recommendations. So with the funding, they were able to hire people to work on that project, to focus on that. So that could be a strategy. But I also recognize that there are not that many people that are skilled and trained with these recommendations. But the idea in the end of creating even the cookbook was exactly to make something more accessible in a language that should be at least more accessible to a broader audience. So I think, for these barriers regarding the availability of technical personnel, I think one way to mitigate that would be, keeping an eye on this new calls for funding and trying to do something similar to World Fair.
Yeah, and I'll just note Peter put into the chat, will AI help? And this is actually a really good point, Peter. If we have these resources well described out there on the internet where LLMs can incorporate the, technical buzzwords and the code snippets and things like that, then it may be easier for organizations to adopt standards like these into their
Yeah, I
existing
mean,
resources but they
yeah,
have to be out there. So I guess that's one thing that we can do as IGAD is to make sure that we discuss these things in public places, that we put
yeah.
lots of pointers to the key resources so that they know which ones are key. Peter, you want to go say more?
Oh, well, that's an open question. Like, what is the form of this recommendations that could really drive the, any kind of AI supported process? Is it the,
Mm-hmm.
kind of vibe coding, or is it the data management, or is it the validation of the data? I guess in each of this, there could be a good use of these recommendations. And yeah, I mean that's an open question. We don't know if that works. We're playing with that a little bit. Also trying to apply standards on top of this heterogeneous data. So as we are working also on this APIs with the semantic uplift that tries to not changing the backend, which is kind of sometimes heavy to clean all over the spaghetti, and that is simply the scale problem.
Yeah, well, this
Mm-hmm.
is what our partners are doing in the context of seeds as well. So instead of changing their whole data infrastructure, they create wrappers that basically map their internal data schema to some of these standards. So they are not changing their databases, but they're creating these mappings that they have an endpoint where you can get the metadata following in a specific schema.
That
And just
requires quality data first, but yes, that's feasible somehow. Yeah.
And just getting back to the AI help, well, this is something that we've been playing with recently, and tool augmentation seems to be, a good way to work with these things. So if you have the standards, the recommendations somewhere, you can use some tool augmentation protocol with LLMs, so you make sure that they are getting, information coming directly from these recommendations and not randomly
Right.
on the. So this could be also an approach to do this to orchestration to get more precise outputs from LLMs. And here on our side we have played we are playing with a few things, also connecting AgroPortal to some LLMs to make like better semantic annotations and improving some services that we offer. So I think this would be an interesting way ahead.
Can I just make
All right.
a last
Well, we've come to the end of our time, and okay, I know some people are already starting to leave, so just a note that let's make sure that we get a lot of these good ideas into the notes, the collaborative session notes, because I think we've actually pulled together a lot of different threads here that I didn't anticipate that we would have so much synergy actually with the talks that we had today. But thanks everybody for coming. Chris, you may go ahead, but I know some people will have to leave because we're past time.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, if you don't want to share your thoughts now, let's go ahead. You can share now if you want.
My last comment is, in essence, you can't manage it if you can't measure it. And it may well be that we ought to have set up an observatory looking, that is regularly checking for adoption.
Mm-hmm.
As a parallel activity to all of the innovation, we ought to have an observatory, and they're quite common these days, but to have one for agri-semantics may well be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in the light of the paper that we published illustrating the lack of adoption, it's the sort of thing that funding agencies should really try and get behind to know that the money they've already invested is actually having an impact and being able to measure it. So just applying for funding for an observatory might be a good thing.
It's a great idea. It's a great idea. Okay, well, with that, thanks everybody for being here. And I think we had a very productive discussion. Hopefully we'll have lots more people who watch the recording, and feel free to share out a link to the recording when it's available. I don't know if it'll be available to people who have not registered. Elisa, do you know what the process is for the recordings to be available to a wider audience?
They're just available on our YouTube channel, so technically
Okay.
anybody with a link should have access.
Fantastic. So let's do our best to promote this widely, and similar with all of our other recommendations. I think that, part of what we're learning today is that there's lots of groups doing lots of very intense technical, cultural change within their organizations, but the more that we can expose folks outside of this group to that work, the better. So with that, hope you have a good rest of the day, and the rest of RDA goes well for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.